Very satisfying. Ever wondered how to join two pieces of timber together at an angle? This video, I'm going to show you how to do that like a pro. These are great basic starting out joint. It's called a raked halving joint. Now, a raked halving joint, they are ideal for custom furniture, for putting on roofs and joining up lots of different roof timbers as well as custom timber. It's a super joint to be able to do, and we're going to start out with the most basic of them, which is going to be a half lap joint. This one will be like our drawing here. We're going to have this piece of timber on this side and this one coming down here. Now, a raked halving joint is any angle that is not 90 degrees. So that can be any, that gives us a lot of variety. When we're marking this one out, we're going to go with a decent angle to start out on. And that's going to be a 45-degree angle in here. So let's look at what tools we need. We don't need a whole lot of tools with this one. We've got our tenon saw. Definitely need the combination marking square. We need the combination marking tool. We definitely need a sliding bevel, steel tape measure. A tri-square would be helpful. A chisel, definitely pens and pencils. This is what we're aiming to do. And this is typically what you'd get, a drawing like this with minimal measurements on it. And it looks straightforward. I didn't want to complicate the drawing, so I left it fairly straightforward like that. The reason I put out these joints here are because if you've been following along on our website for our tutorials, you'll have learned most of the basics to do this on the cutting. So you will have done a corner half lap, a T half lap, a cross half lap. These are our three core basic half lap joints. And then we've progressed on to doing a dovetail half lap. So you will have done a corner half lap, a T half lap, a cross half lap. These are our three core basic half lap joints. And then we progressed on to doing a dovetail half lap. The next step up from the dovetail half lap is going to be the raked halving joint. Let's take our working drawing more in the frame here so we can get a good look at this. I've purposely drawn this with very little markings out on it. This is typical of what you would get in a drawing. Very few measurements, if any, on it when you're starting out. It looks straightforward enough like that. Here's our timber and we want it like that. I strongly suggest to you that you sketch this out. Sketch it out first on a piece of paper so that you get to understand it in your head and you're able to visualize it and picture it. And we'll see what we're doing. It is really important in this to do this cuts in a particular order. It's going to help you an awful lot if we do them in a particular order. Not just which piece of timber to cut first, but which cut to cut first on that piece of timber. Previously, we've been working on a variety of different joints, and the marking out, because it's only two pieces of timber, has been fairly straightforward, but we're going to up it a notch. We're going to take this away and we'll see what we're looking at here. On your drawing, if you redraw it or mark out on it, that's why I've drawn two here, we're going to put in some labeling and we're going to put in some marking out. Let me explain this to you. This piece of timber here is going to get cut out, and we're going to call that, similar to what we had with the dovetail joint, is the pin. Or I refer to it as the socket because it's a bit more modern and it's easier to understand. That length of timber for this project is 300 mil long. The tail or the plug is this piece of timber here, and that one is 200 mil long. It's going to join into this one at a 45-degree angle. That's why we have our angle in here. It's going to join onto this piece of timber, so the top of it is 140 mil down from the top. So we have a measurement to work to. I've highlighted these timbers in different colors to make them stand out. So this, the tail or the plug one is the one in red, and this one's the one in green. That's straightforward enough. I've added additional ones in purple because I wanted to show the marking outlines that we're going to have to do on this. So we're really going to have to step this out bit by bit to mark it out correctly. So our first thing that we're going to put on these two pieces of timber, actually on the timbers, will be our face side. That's our face side, so we know where it's pointing to, so our edge is going to be down there. We've got a face on that one, and a face and edge on this one. Let's call this one our pin, or the socket. I stepped through this because it is important to label all this. Skipping this stage of the marking out will lead to problems later. At the moment, as you're learning this, you'll be doing one joint, only one. Later on, we're going to have multiple joints, but we're building up to doing multiple joints by having set up our tools as guides, and then we can measure less. So once we measure on certain things, we'll use our guides to mark out multiples of these. Face side and face edge. This one is to come down 140 mil from that. We take that one and we put it on 140 mil. That's good enough. We've got our mark there, and on that mark, I would actually write, I'll do it so you can see it above. I'm going to write that that's 140, 140 mil. It's not great to see that, but I can see it there. Because if you're not sure where your markings are and you have a number of pencil marks on it, you lose track. So we know we're going to go to that point there. This is the one we're concerned with, and we want this one to go across here. With that, we're going to take our combination square and use on the body of it the 45 angle here and the ruler. This is a tricky one, and if you haven't got used to this, now is a good one to master it. Let's hold the edge of this body along the edge of our timber here. It's going to run up tight to that edge. This timber is going to cross it here. So we're going to drag that down. This is our 45 line here, and we want to put that one up over it. I'm going to take a pencil and I'll go over the pencil marks afterwards. When that's on there, I'm going to move this up here and have a slight overhang. Got a small overhang on that one. Have to hold that down and put a mark on that timber. I am not going to put a line across there. Don't put a line across. Just put a mark on where that's going. That's going there. Hold that down firmly. Take your ruler out of the way and put a mark on this one. I'm going to have to look over this. I'm going to try and get it in the camera that where these two pieces of timber join up, if I lift this up, when I lift this one up, I'm holding it in my hand in here. I'm holding that there and they keep slipping about and moving around. If this is fixed on the bench, it's easier to do it, but I need to show you for the video. This area here, where they meet, this is where you want to mark that and that on both pieces. If we've got that mark on both pieces, let's put a little arrow to that one and a small arrow to that one. Can that be seen? That's what we want to do. But it's far easier if you're able to hold it down on the bench and use some clamps. When we have that marked up there, we'll then take each piece individually and mark it with our combination square. This one, it's a straight line along the top. So make sure that this body is definitely against that edge. That's against the edge now. And we can mark a line in here. That is actually too far out on that one. There it is. Yes, that's a good thick line that we can see. With this is going to get cut down this direction. The top half is actually going to come out. Now, we don't want to mark it all out. We only want to mark a little of it out. So off the face, we want to run this one across here. And we don't want it all the way down. It's only going to come halfway out. So don't need to run it all the way across. Let's put that one aside for now. I've only marked the top, that's straight. We're not doing this. We're going to have a lot of work to do in here. That went across there, and there's our mark. It's tiny. Continually looking at this one, we have to imagine there's a dotted line coming back here underneath. So I need a little direction to say it's coming through that way, so we know which way it's coming. Now we take and mark this one across here. I'll need to line that up. I have to get my head in the way to see what I'm doing. That's the waist side of my line. Right through there. Keeping track? Okay. The bottom part of this joint is going to get cut away. Let's start marking that out. Lovely wood. Right the way down to there. Let's start marking that. That bit is going to go. At this stage, don't go running away to try and cut the half lap yet. So that's going to go. What we need to do is work out this angle. So where our timber meets down here, we need to turn our timber over. And the distance, if we measured along this edge line, here's our edge line. If we measure along this edge line at a perpendicular 90 degrees up here, we would measure 15 millimeters. Take this and measure it at 15 mil, like that. That's my edge, there's our 15. Where that crosses over, that's the mark we're looking for. We're going to mark it on both sides. When I've set that, I want to keep it. That's why this is handy. I have to keep checking which is the edge side. This is why it's important to have these marked as the face and edge as well. So if that's my inside edge, then I need to mark it up along here. And 45 is going that direction. Oh, this is good. If you're still with me and we're going through this one, great. That's going to get cut out along here. We'll see this afterwards. Down here and across there. We've marked in our 15 this way. We need to do 15 here in from the edge. Here's my edge side, and that line, I'm taking that 90 degrees up there, and where it crosses this one, I want to mark across there. I know it's in pencil, I hope you can see that. How far across this goes, because we have it like that now, across here is going to be from that line, the width of that timber. We put a little mark at the width of that timber, and then we're going to use our square again and start measuring this one out. I'll move this down now, and we have to keep that in place there. I'm not going the whole way because we're not cutting all of this out just yet. I want that one. Square it down. I've got to square it off of the face, and then that's going that direction. Taking it to that line, hold it tight. Try and do this on the table, on the bench. I'm just trying to get the camera to see it, because now it tells us that this space here at this end, instead of having it just run out wherever it is, we've got to do it at 2 mil. Take your combination square to 2 mil. There we go. Where that now comes across and intersects on that one, we have a point here and a point here from our 15. The same on the other side. So it'll be like that. We're leaving this out for the moment. We're going to cut the tail or the plug first, but we haven't finished marking it out yet. We're going to take our sliding bevel. We're going to hold it to, if I can get that on there, that'll be doing well. I want to take that out. We see that there? So that the block of the sliding bevel is against our edge here, and the blade is going to come through and intersect our 2 points, our 15 mil point and our 2 mil point. Let's tighten that up. That will run through there. I will mark it on the waist side along here. This is going to get cut out. If we turn this over, now that we have this set up once, it's a guide. We're going to use it on the other side. And if you're doing multiples of these, you're going to run them on them all. That's a fraction out, but we're going to go with the guide. Let's just see that that actually lines up. So very close, we follow our line. It's gone through our 2 mil point. It's going out to the end. It's coming straight across here, and it's caught our one here, and it's running through there as well. What's important is this 15 mil point. The reason this, well, they're both important, but the more important one is the 15 mil point, because if there were multiples of these, this is what you would see. It's like the base of the dovetail. This is the bit you're going to see. If that runs out somewhere off the timber, it may get planed off and cleaned up later, and you may not see it. So now that we have just this angle marked out, we are still not ready to cut. We need this in our vise, and we need to take care with our marking gauge where we're going to mark it up. I'm going to take this on this side with my face out here, because I'm right-handed. Put it in the vise. When I'm looking at that from top, I can see it's on the right here. I'll take my marking gauge. I'm going to go down to my line here. Mark that in there. Go down to that line. Tighten that up. Doesn't move on me. Get your pencil mark in there and we'll line that up. If we've got a sharper marker, you can run that along there. This one, down the end, that's okay. And this time, down to full half. We've got so many lines on this now, it becomes difficult to focus on what's staying and what's going. So it's worth labeling the lines if you need to label the lines. This is where measure twice, cut once comes in. With this one, measure 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, try to cut once. Run that along there, across there, and through there. So we're marking out our waist. The back half of that is all going to go. We'll cut down our half, but we'll also cut into here. The first cut we're going to do on this one is going to be this angle cut in here. When we put this in the vise, we're going to line it up so that our line there is going to be plumb. Pull that out there a little down there. We're not cutting out this whole piece, we're just going to cut down this line. And we're going to use the same principle as we used before by making curved lines down on the waist side of that line. This is a bit of a tricky one to get started in here because we're running down along the timber here. So I'll get down here at an angle, I have to move around and I'm going to start cutting very carefully on the waist side of that line. Put it a little over there on my vise. My handle's in the way. Check that this is plumb. There. I'm taking my time at cutting this. I'm trying to get the line as accurate as I can. So that's why it's plumb, and I just want to get a curved line down the side here. I've double checked my marking out, so I'm pretty confident that's it. So now, take your time at cutting it, try and get it as accurate as you can. So hopefully you'll be able to cut the once. Once I've done one side of this, I'm going to turn it over and come down the other side. I'm still able to see my line here, and I've cut on the waist side of that line, a curve down here and a curve on the other side. And we've got this edge here. Now, that was step 1, step 2. Normally we would cut across the side, but it's so difficult. We're going to now cut into these and the blade will follow that curve line. If you find that you're doing a very long angled cut in here, and you've started with the tenon saw, remember to jump on to the panel saw. With so many markings out on this cut, you want to take your time at it and remember where to stop. Quite often I see my students have cut all the way through and they've cut further down the line they're meant to cut. So really take your time at it and watch out for it. If I look closely at this one, it didn't follow the curve. It came down on this side. So whilst I still have it together, I'm checking my work as I go along. Now I'm going to try and correct this before I move on. So I'm going to put it back in the vise. And I'm going to push the saw over to be able to take that out now before me having to chisel this out later. I've managed to pull that over a small bit. And I'm okay to be able to chisel the rest of that one out. At this stage, when I've done this line, I'm going to leave this one because I want to be able to see when I'm doing my half cut, I want to see my full line. But before I do the half cut, what often happens is people cut straight down and go way too far on one side. So I'm actually going to do the cross cut on this one. So that's our second cut. With the cross cut on this one, we don't need a bench hook. It's not safe. Put it in a vise. Once it's in the vise there, we need to move round and start cutting through here. Here's a tip for you. If you're struggling to do a 45-degree cut, get yourself a scrap piece of timber, a quick clamp, and line that timber up to your line. If you have the stuff there, why not make use of it? If that's in place, now you have the timber as a guide, and you'll be able to cut through that one if you're struggling to do a 45-degree cut. So we've cut down our shoulder line. We're going to cut down the cheek now. And it's far easier to see the cut line than a pencil line. So that's why I left it till now. I'm going to start it with the 10 and so. I'm going to cut on the waist side of that line. Make sure that's tight. I'm going to get back to here and start as I've done all the other joints, the half flap and everything else. Start on the top. Tilt that more than 45 because I want to get a long curved line down here. So with my cuts 1, 2, 3, we're going to be able to cut right down. I'm going to cutting this one with the high side near me because I'll hit that first. I'll be able to watch that one. When I've hit that one, then I'll be able to go over to the other side, or when I've nearly hit it. So when I'm going to be cutting down on the long side now, I want to take care that I don't end up cutting into this line. So I've kept this fairly horizontal across here, and I need to watch the blade that it's horizontal, that I don't cut into that. It's slightly lower on that side. When I'm getting down to the end of this cut now, I'm going to slow down an awful lot. I'm going to really take my time at it, because I'm probably going to cut into this here and it's probably going to come out. But I don't want to go beyond it. You can see it's a good bit further on that side. So we have one bit out. This is going to come out quite soon. We've got quite a bit of fibre in here that we want to take out. We're going to do that in a moment. Going slow at it, we've managed to get quite close to that line and leaving the line there, so we've cut on the waist side. At this stage, we can cut the rest of this little notch out. Again, we're going to put it so that the line is plump from the front. That line will be plump. Tighten that up. I'm going to catch the blade on that shoulder. Use that shoulder as my guide. Now that it's in the vise, I'm going to take my chisel and start to clean this up a little. Hold it safely, both hands behind the blade. Let's just notch that little bit out. When we have that out, we can take our combination square and check our angles to see if these bits are cut square. If we've got great big lumps in it, you take a pencil and you try and find the high bits and highlight the high bits and slowly chisel them out. You can take the combination square and see if that angle is a clean cut. And we want to try and get it as clean as you can down along there. How are we doing on our drawing? When we've got this bit out, we're then able to put it to our drawing, our working drawing, and check we're doing okay. Looks all right. I've got a bit out here, but this will come out later. Take the socket piece, and this is going to line up across here. Like you did before with the dovetail, when this, on the back of it, has no gaps and it's in there correctly. Here's our edge, here's the body, there's our 45-degree line. When that's in there at a 45-degree line on that, without a gap on the back, it's looking good. So go to your line, you can just see your line here. Now we're going to put a line on this side. I'm referring back to the dovetail joint because a lot of this is what we did with the dovetail joint. You would have cut this one first and then use this to mark out the socket. So if there's a mistake on here, you're going to go over that line. That's our waist side in there and it's halfway down. So we can mark these out. That line is half. The same on this side. Half there. That just catches that one. So we're going to check our working drawing. We've got our face and edge, and continually coming back to this. If we want to check our measurements on here, put your square, combination square onto 15 and see, have we come in there at 15? Pretty close on that one. I'm not going to measure the two because this could get cut off there somewhere. If you're finding this helpful so far, give us a thumbs up. If there's any bit that I've missed out or any bit that you want me to, well, obviously you can rewind and go over it, that'll be all right. But if there's another point of view or another angle that you'd like this, let me know in the comments because I'm happy to try and redo it. This is a complicated joint to do. We're keeping it fairly simple at this stage because we're doing it at a 45-degree angle. This point being a 45-degree angle, we're doing it there because it's a common number, it's a common angle, and it's the next easy step to do it. If you were doing this on a roof and it wasn't a 45 and it was something like a 32-degree angle, you'd want to have a second sliding bevel. And at that, what you want to do is label both of them. So you put some masking tape around it on the handle and you mark it and write one is 32 degrees and the other is for your angle cut there. You want to identify which is which. You do not want to end up cutting these out multiple times. So now that we have plug or the tail sorted out, we've outlined the cut on the socket or the pin. We now have to mark down the halfway mark. That's no more difficult than what we've been doing before. Taking a marking gauge and we're going to run that down here. So we've got it. The only thing with this, certainly if you started out, is to remember to do it from the face side. There's our face and the block is against the face. That way the distance is going to, or the top of it, the face, when it all comes together, it should be flush. And when I mean flush, they'll marry up. Get a pencil line through that pin mark or the mark you've done. It's easier to see it. You've done that one through there. Oh, it's gone off. You can rub that out. That's why we have our razors. So, lots of cuts in here. On the waist side of that line, I've double checked that. I've triple checked it. Another tip for this, if you're cutting at an awkward angle, is start out a little higher on the corner. See the level of the blade, it's up higher. Instead of me trying to get the whole bottom of the blade along that timber there, instead of me trying to get the whole bottom of the blade on the timber, I'm starting on a corner. I'm going to get a bit of a kerf line going first. I'm going to slowly drag that down so as it follows my line. I haven't cut all the way down yet. I've just started that kerf line. At that stage, I want to check that this is going to fit in there. So I'm going to put this over, and if I can see my cuts either side of that or very close to it, then we should be able to get this pretty neatly in there. If I'm a bit far out, we've got to correct it. And to correct it, we would either cut further in than we need to or a little further out. I've cut down both my shoulder lines. Measure twice, cut once. Let's double check that. I can see the outside of that. That is going to be a tight fitting joint. If we need to plane that a little, we can do, or chisel it down. So now, every couple of mil, we're going to take a lot of cuts out. Another tip with this, when I've cut my outside lines, because I can't see the line across here that's away from me, and I can see this one, when this goes in here, you're not going to see any dents in here if you cut off the line. So I'm better off to be looking at my finish line. So I'm going to cut this one on this side so I can see here, and if it goes a little over on that side, that's okay. It'll get hidden. So lots of relief cuts in there. Take our chisel, elbow on the bench. Let's prise these open. Listen, I like this. Yes, very satisfying. Those little cuts. Great. I'm going to use the back of the chisel because I'm pretty close down on this one and try and pare out down to my line. I'm going to go 2/3 of the way in. Only 2/3 because I don't want to break this bit out at the back. So I'm going to turn the timber around in a moment. You can use a wider chisel for this. That's a good wide chisel. 38mm. When you right in the corner here, these fibres, I take the blade, put the back against the shoulder here and score that, cut that into that. So the fibres are cutting in there, a slight angle. So right in those corners, this should come out a little easier. That's why you got to control it. You don't want it skipping out the other side and busting that edge after you've taken so long to cut it. Now, if you have the luxury of a router plane, it's a specialist plane that will fit in here and you'll be able to clean that out. Make use of it. I don't have one, so I'm just cleaning it down, taking my time at it with a chisel. Let's test it out. Remember, faces up, edges in. See if it fits. It's a little tight. Now we're going to see what bits need to come out to make that a closer fit. When it's this tight on here, I'm going to take a little off of this one. If you needed to take any of the others, you could do. What's good to do is to check, are your 45s correct? If they are, leave them. Don't go cutting your 45s. So that's okay. So that's straight edge at the back. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with this straight edge along here as well. I will take a little off of this shoulder and I'll take a little out of this. So let's do that with the chisel. You really want a nice sharp chisel for this. I have a link to sharpening. Check it out. What I've done is I've taken my tri-square against there and I can see I'm a little high here on this side. I'll take a little off of that. You can almost see the blade on it from the saw there as well. Nice little curl. So it's fitting in there nicely. We've got minimum gap here and across here. We turn it over, very slight gap there. And when we look into our corners, very little gap as well. It's not perfectly flush, so I'll keep working away to get this down in here. I can see my line is out there, but it would also be helpful to take a little off of that. So I'll do that before we meet again. And here we have our raked halving joint. I'm happy with that. Get it a little closer. Oh, this bit that's coming out here, we'll mark that up now. Trying to mark that up is a tricky one. So a couple of ways to mark this. I've got my line here, and that's going to come all the way through there. I can take that out, find that line there. I'm going to make it bigger because at this stage I don't want to cut it in here and have it short. It's got to be a little bit longer. So from that point of view, let's do it this way. I've purposely left it an overhang because later on we'll be able to plane that off with a plane and get it exactly where we want it. So there we have our raked half joint. That is something we would use an awful lot in roofs or custom furniture. So if you've done that one, the next challenge will be do 2. We're going to have them married up in a bracket, and that's going to be out shortly. So we'll have an additional one on that one, and you're going to be then, the next step will to be joining up 3 pieces of timber. That's going to be fun. Okay, have a great one. If you liked it, look forward to seeing you again. See you in the next one. Thanks, bye.